What are men lacking these days? According to Running with Cakes, a backbone. Cupcake 7586 says emotional maturity. Okay Engineering 944-1 says masculinity. Men are becoming pussified, abusive, and feminine. If you don't treat people well and are too cowardly to stand up for yourself or others, whether you're at a disadvantage or not, then you can hardly call yourself a man.
Damn.
In today's video, gents, we're going to have some fun. There are going to be points here that you disagree with. There are going to be points that you agree with. And let's keep the conversation going by down in the comments. I want to know by the end of this video, which one is the one you 100% agree with, the ones that, you think are flat out wrong. So prestigious quote 525 says, unpopular opinion, but manners. Like learn how to eat like human and not an animal. Be kind, patient, and learn to slow the F down and enjoy life. Now, personally, I agree with this one. I feel that as a society, we've become more relaxed and the pushing of manners as a whole has gone down. Now, there are many places, many families, probably yours perhaps, where manners were taught. And if they weren't, I'd love to hear in the comments below how you picked up good manners. But in general, and maybe again, this is me growing up in West Texas in the 1980s, just simply you addressed teachers as sir, as ma'am. You showed people respect. I don't see that happening too much. I know that's kind of a Southern thing, but it's just something in general. I find that people are much more casual, lackadaisical attitude towards manners in general. Now, according to Learning 24/7, it's good old primal masculine urges like exploration of nature, hunting, building, being the best version of themselves, etc. Now, I know a lot of you guys are going to agree with this one, but for me, what I'm seeing is that's not the case. I live again, though, in a small town, rural Wisconsin, and we've got guys going out hunting all the time, four-wheelers. We got a lot of scouts in this area, so they're going out camping, exploring the woods. And maybe it's because I've got also a lot of ex-military buddies, so they do things like this. But this one, I really feel it's who you're surrounding yourself with. If you're out, in the suburbs, Southern California, perhaps you're not seeing that very much. But if you live, I think, in the Midwest, or you live in a rural area, I think that all that stuff is alive and well. Now, this next point is one I know a lot of you guys can relate with, and I was very happy to see it was highly upvoted, and that is positive male influences. Seriously, so many guys are lacking this nowadays because they're not growing up with a father. They don't have, I was very fortunate. My dad wasn't around, but I did have some awesome coaches. Whether it was football, whether it was track, whether it was just mentors that took me in when I was in the military and made sure that I had the structure, I had the direction I needed to be able to become the man I know myself to be. Now, do these guys need to look like Arnold Schwarzenegger or Sylvester Stallone? No, actually, one of my favorite comments by K3M3 said, "This is why I haven't been the same since Richard Simmons withdrew from public life." Now, initially, I thought that was a joke till I read all the comments below. Everyone talking about how Richard Simmons is actually a great positive influence. I thought about it. I'm like, you know what? They are exactly right. The guy was always positive, kept people moving. Yeah, he was sweating to the oldies and doing his thing, but I'm thinking like Mr. Rogers, another great male influencer that really we just don't see that kind of person put up in front of us, nowadays. Now, a good point was brought up by Reddit admins. He said, "I noticed that any man of note, even remotely skirting the realm of positive male influences, is typically reduced and brought down to the level of noted member of the alt-right status by diametrically opposed views." Now, he definitely has a point, but if you're looking for a positive male influence in your life, you don't have to be searching out controversial figures. There are tons of them all around us. For example, check out this guy, Brett Evanston. He's teaching over at Skillshare, the sponsor of today's video, and check out this class he's got going on. It is basic skills getting started with drawing. And in this example, we've got birds, and, I don't know about you guys, but I love ornithology, studied birds. I just always felt I could not draw to save my life. But in this class right here, the guy breaks it out. Thousands of students have gone through, and everyone's saying this exceeded my expectations. What I love about Skillshare is you can actually see what the students submitted. These are people starting at a basic level, and all of a sudden they're getting the skill set to be able to produce something, absolutely beautiful. Yeah, you got to put in the practice, you got to put in the work, but I love seeing an influence like this, a positive male influence. This guy, Brett, just simply teaching men and women around the world how to draw. Or what if you need to get your life together? Go check out my friend Thomas Frank, his class on Skillshare, Mastering productivity. What I love about this masterclass is he went through and he curated his best information. In fact, Thomas Frank's class has had over 100,000 students, with 50% of students reporting that he exceeded their expectations. And guys, that is just the tip of the iceberg. Skillshare has thousands of classes. So if you're looking to understand freelancing, you want to get into photography, you want to get into the design, guys, Skillshare has a course for you. Every single week, they're adding new premium courses. Oh, and their entire catalog is available with subtitles with Spanish, French, Portuguese, and German. Now, gents, as always, I want to make sure you get the best deal. So use that link in the description of today's video to get 1 month free. Now, that's only for the first 1,000 people that use that link. Again, I'm putting that link in the description of today's video to get the best deal on the web. The next thing men are lacking these days, according to Dirt Road King 420, testosterone. And he wasn't the only one that said this. Exact Initiative 7660 said the same thing, testosterone. And in fact, came from Xbox, not only listed testosterone, he actually linked to a study coming out of Yale University. So from 1999 to 2016, they looked at all of these men throughout the United States, and they did find that in general, testosterone levels were going down. Now, to be clear, that was based off one study, so it hasn't been replicated, but they did indicate on average, people were heavier than they were 20 years ago. And what we're also seeing is just more diabetes. And this is leading as well to lower levels of testosterone. Next up, we got HextRazor01, and he says the ability to stop watching porn. And I actually have to agree with him on this, but mostly because 20 years ago, you just didn't have the prevalence that you have. Yes, it was starting the internet, but go back 30 years. It definitely was something that you just had to find a magazine. It wasn't as readily available. Nowadays, with everything that we've got, you can pretty much find anything out there. So I do agree that that is a bigger issue for men nowadays. Now, this next one, I will fully admit, was my favorite answer, and that is by winning Taiga, and that is 120 gun man of war, crew to rely on and trust, ample amounts of liquor, the Caribbean sun, other ships to pillage, rob, and sink, sharpened cutlass, the pirate's life. Men are missing the pirate's life. Now, personally, I think that pirates' lives, and I think a lot of you guys will agree, they've been over romanticized by Hollywood. And I bet it was a pretty tough life, pretty bad oral hygiene, scurvy, all that other stuff that goes with living on a ship without, vegetables, without, good water and, that kind of stuff. That being said, the life of a corsair, kind of an outlaw, but yet you're not. That one is more interesting to me. Now, getting back to the serious answers, Sunbloke 164 said meaningful connections, especially with each other. And I agree, it's so difficult for men past a certain age to start connecting with other men. We get busy with life. In general, a lot of guys are standoffish. They're very guarded about their feelings. Maybe when you're just starting off high school, college, that's when you seem to make some really great connections. One thing I think is low-hanging fruit is just to start reaching back out to your friends. And don't take it bad whenever they don't immediately get back to you. Be the guy that goes that extra mile. And, you reach out to 5, you maybe get 1 or 2 that connect, make a thing of it. Maybe set up a trip, and yes, you may have to travel to them. You may have to go that extra mile, but there's no traffic on the extra mile. And it is worth it, because at the end of your life, guys, we think about who's going to be at your funeral, who are going to be the guys carrying your casket. And even to add to that, if you're in your 40s, 50s, or 60s, make relationships with younger guys. Find somebody you can mentor. I remember reading a story about a guy that was in his 50s and 60s and realized all of his friends were dying. And he said, you know what? I want there to be a lot of people at my funeral. So he spent the next decade building relationships with younger men and women that he could mentor, that he could help. And at his funeral, exactly what, he expected, and everyone was surprised by, his family especially, is all of these young people were at his funeral because he had been someone that, because of his gray hair and because of his experience, he was able to give them guidance, and they respected and they loved him. Another great answer from Explorer Upstairs. To me, the biggest things I feel are lacking are rites of passage and mentorship. I feel these explain a lot, or the directionless you see in men these days. I have to 100% agree on this one. I think when you had smaller tribes, there were certain things that were done whenever a boy became a man, and we all mark that. But nowadays, we don't see that in society. Maybe a driver's license, maybe your 21st birthday, your friends take you out and get you drunk, but that's not a rite of passage. I know for me, when I was in Boy Scouts, It was the Order of the Arrow, although I have to say that I didn't finish all of that. I did become an Eagle Scout, so that was a rite of passage. High school sports, being on the varsity football team, my senior year, I didn't make, it took me a while. I was always second string, even my senior year, but still I made the team. Going to regionals in track, you could argue that kind of pain and pushing yourself to that level was a, coming of age moment. But college was a blur. It was more of a party. There was really nothing in college, I would say, that was becoming a man. It wasn't until I joined the Marine Corps that we had the Crucible. We had, I think, all of a sudden being an officer and in charge and having my own platoon, that was huge. All of a sudden having guys older than me, guys that I was 100% responsible for, and I couldn't F up. I had to be on my top. I had to be looking out for these guys. I had to be there before they were first thing in the morning. I had to be able to be a leader. So, out in fitness, or whether it be just knowing everything that they knew, plus being a little bit better. That was the expectation of being an officer. I have to say that for me was one of the strongest, and there were other officers that mentored me. At the time, Major Lee went on to become a colonel. At the time, Lieutenant Colonel Craparata, who went on to become a major general. These were the kind of guys that I had above me who were mentoring me, and sometimes not very kindly, just pointing out, you have a lot to do. Don't make up excuses, solve the problem, make it happen. So I remember, there was a couple months that I slept in my office trying to learn, trying to catch up, trying to get ahead on everything that needed to be done. And it was a coming of age period. Now, we had a lot of guys, Diversity Fire 84, Shane 727, wife Tabby. These guys were all saying emotional support. And I agree that is something that we need more of for men nowadays. But I'm wondering, I actually feel that men nowadays have more emotional support than we've ever had in the history. When I was growing up, it was just something not talked about. A man kept it inside. I'm not saying it's much better, but it seems to be slightly better. There seem to be at least hotlines. There seem to be, it's talked about in society. But I do feel still a lot of guys do not open up. Maybe, especially we don't have other guys that we can open up to. That's really nice because guys understand. And opening up to women, I think, is pretty taboo for a lot of us because we feel, even though they say that we can, when we do it, or you read stories about guys that do it, it seems like they're rejected or they're seen as weak. I don't know. What do you guys think? Let me know in the comments what you've experienced. Now, at the beginning of this video, we talked about masculinity, and I have to agree that I think that there is a lack of masculinity today, but not necessarily for the reason that a lot of men do. I think most people have a bad definition of masculinity. They somehow think it should be the polar opposite of being feminine, of being a woman, of being a femininity. And that's not true. To me, masculinity is the opposite of being a child. And we live in a world in which, again, there's not, rites of passage. There is no encouragement of men to grow up and to shed, basically take on responsibility, to become accountable for their actions, to actually seek self-improvement, industry, and things like this. This is what it means to become a productive person, a man, I think, in society. And instead, you have these people that are walking around man-child. They're not responsible. They don't take their own responsibility. They're not actually looking out there to improve themselves. They're simply self-absorbed, narcissistic. This is not masculinity. And that's why I have an issue with, I see when people say toxic masculinity. I think masculinity of itself is a great thing. And I don't like the word toxic being mixed with it. I would say if something is toxic, it's not masculine. And hitting on that point, I really like this comment from Barry Sauce. It's a woman, and she said that, I'm not a man, but I can already tell you it's responsibility, purpose, and appreciation. This society has set men up for a life of perpetual childhood. It's no wonder so many men are unhappy. And I agree, a man without purpose, that is a man that will have a very difficult time with life. Agree? Disagree? Again, guys, I love hearing from you guys. Let me know in the comments below. And what video to watch next? Well, how about, do women prefer masculine or feminine men? Again, it was a lighthearted, fun video. Go check it out, guys. I thought it was pretty good. Yep, right here, guys. I will link to it. Go check it out. Solid video.